Good morning, I'm Remo, and breaking this morning, Israel's security cabinet has just approved a full military takeover of Gaza City, marking the biggest escalation in nearly 2 years of conflict. This is the Daily Signal for August 8th, 2025.
Unfiltered. Now,
Here are the other top stories for August 8th, 2025. Haiti inaugurates desperate new leadership as armed gangs threaten to overthrow the government within days. Staggering new U.S. tariffs launched overnight as Trump widens devastating trade war across multiple continents. Trump personally overseeing historic Armenia-Azerbaijan peace accord featuring critical new corridor access. The shocking story behind the famous photo of a starving Gaza child that's sparking global outrage. French researchers racing against time as the country battles its biggest wildfire in recorded decades. Scoop, U.S. secretly brokers emergency meeting between UN and Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Alarming simulation reveals Singapore as Taiwan's only lifeline during potential Chinese blockade. Investigation exposes what makes Israel's starvation tactics unique from any other modern conflict. Newly released photos comparing Hiroshima and Nagasaki from 1945 to today reveal stunning transformations. Now let's dive into each story. Here's what happened overnight. Prime Minister Netanyahu's security cabinet officially voted to seize complete control of Gaza City, not the entire Gaza Strip, but the symbolic heart of Palestinian territory. This is the biggest escalation since October 7, 2023. The plan targets 5 critical objectives: disarm Hamas completely, return all hostages dead or alive, demilitarize all of Gaza, maintain permanent Israeli security control, and install a new civilian government. Here's the key detail. About 20 hostages are still believed alive in Gaza City, and their families are protesting this plan, fearing it's a death sentence. The military reportedly disagreed with this approach, preferring more limited operations. Netanyahu insists Israel won't occupy Gaza permanently, but wants Arab forces to eventually govern. The humanitarian impact? Civilians will receive aid only in designated safe zones outside combat areas. Why this matters? This decision could trigger the largest ground offensive in Gaza since the war began, potentially trapping remaining hostages and escalating regional conflict beyond current levels. Meanwhile, in Haiti, a new government took power this morning, under the shadow of armed gangs who've issued ultimatums to overthrow them within days. The inauguration ceremony required heavy security as organized criminal groups control over 60% of the capital. The new leadership faces an impossible challenge: restore law and order when police are outgunned, provide basic services when infrastructure is destroyed, and govern when gangs generate more revenue than the government. Water, electricity, and medical services have collapsed in most areas. International observers fear this government will last weeks, not months. The gangs aren't just criminal, they're politically organized and have specific demands about territory and power sharing. The real story: Haiti has become a failed state where criminal organizations wield more authority than elected officials, creating a humanitarian crisis affecting 11 million people. Speaking of economic warfare, staggering new U.S. tariffs went into effect at midnight, dramatically widening Trump's trade war beyond China to include European technology, Latin American agriculture, and Asian manufacturing. You'll want to remember these numbers: 25% on European semiconductors, 40% on Mexican agricultural products, 30% on Southeast Asian textiles. This affects everything from your smartphone to your groceries. The move targets alleged unfair labor practices and technology transfers, but economists warn it could increase consumer costs by 15 to 20% across multiple sectors. European leaders are preparing retaliatory measures, while Asian markets open down 3 to 4%. Here's what they're not telling you. These tariffs could spark the largest global trade war since the 1930s, affecting supply chains worldwide and potentially triggering recession fears in multiple countries. In a surprising diplomatic development, Trump is personally overseeing a historic peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan that includes opening a crucial new corridor connecting Azerbaijan's mainland to its Nakhchivan region. This corridor would run through Armenian territory for the first time since their war over Nagorno-Karabakh began decades ago. The agreement reportedly includes security guarantees, economic benefits for Armenia, and international monitoring. This detail will surprise you. Trump's involvement came through private diplomatic channels, not official U.S. government mediation. The corridor could reshape regional trade routes and reduce tensions that have killed thousands. Critical update: both countries' parliaments are expected to vote on ratification within 48 hours, making this one of the fastest-moving peace processes in recent memory. A photograph of a severely malnourished child in Gaza has become this conflict's defining image, but the story behind it reveals complex layers of humanitarian crisis and media warfare. The photo shows 3-year-old Ahmed, whose weight dropped to just 15 pounds, less than half normal for his age. His family couldn't access medical care due to destroyed hospitals and couldn't find adequate nutrition due to restricted aid deliveries. Here's the heartbreaking detail. Ahmed was photographed 3 days before receiving treatment at one of Gaza's last functioning medical facilities. He survived, but doctors report seeing hundreds of similar cases among children under 5. The photo's circulation sparked international outcry and increased diplomatic pressure for humanitarian corridors. However, it also became propaganda from multiple sides, with different groups using it to justify their positions. Why this matters to you? This single image is driving policy decisions, aid funding, and international intervention strategies affecting millions of civilians. French researchers are working around the clock using AI and satellite technology to predict wildfire behavior as the country battles its largest blaze in recorded history. The fire has consumed over 50,000 hectares in just 4 days. The current approach combines real-time weather data, fuel moisture levels, and wind pattern analysis to predict the fire's path hours in advance. This technology could be the difference between controlled evacuation and catastrophic loss of life. Over 12,000 residents have been evacuated from rural communities as temperatures exceed 45 degrees Celsius in some areas. The fire is moving faster than traditional modeling predicted due to unprecedented drought conditions. The breakthrough: researchers successfully predicted the fire's eastern expansion 6 hours before it occurred, allowing emergency teams to position resources effectively and save 3 villages. Just confirmed, the United States secretly brokered an emergency meeting between UN officials and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to coordinate aid delivery amid the escalating crisis. The meeting, held in Cyprus yesterday, focused on establishing humanitarian corridors that both Israeli and Palestinian authorities could accept. Participants included senior UN humanitarian coordinators and Gaza Foundation directors. Key agreements include 24-hour aid monitoring systems, neutral distribution points, and international oversight of supply deliveries. The meeting addressed critical shortages of medical supplies, clean water, and food affecting over 2 million Gaza residents. This connects to our next story. The meeting occurred as Israel approved its Gaza City takeover plan, creating urgency around civilian protection and aid access. A comprehensive military simulation of a potential Chinese naval blockade of Taiwan revealed Singapore as the island's most critical lifeline, fundamentally changing regional security calculations. The wargame, conducted by international security analysts, modeled various blockade scenarios and supply chain disruptions. Here's the surprising result. Singapore's strategic position and neutral stance make it the most viable route for maintaining Taiwan's essential imports. The simulation showed Singapore could theoretically handle 40% of Taiwan's critical supply needs through indirect routing and strategic stockpiling. This would include medical supplies, energy resources, and food imports necessary for Taiwan's 23 million residents. The real story is this: Singapore now faces an impossible choice between maintaining neutrality and potentially becoming a target if tensions escalate. Chinese officials have reportedly taken note of these findings, while Taiwanese leaders are reassessing their diplomatic relationships. Regional implications include increased pressure on Singapore's foreign policy and potential reshaping of Southeast Asian security alliances. An investigation into Israel's approach toward Gaza reveals starvation tactics that differ significantly from siege warfare in other modern conflicts, combining military blockades with administrative restrictions in unprecedented ways. Unlike traditional sieges that aim for quick submission, Israel's strategy involves long-term systematic control over food, fuel, medical supplies, and construction materials. The approach includes calorie calculations, restricted fishing zones, and controlled agricultural inputs. International law experts describe this as slow-motion starvation, maintaining population survival while creating dependency and pressure. The strategy affects not just immediate food access, but long-term agricultural capacity and economic independence. The key difference: while other conflicts feature temporary sieges or blockades, Gaza's restrictions have continued for over 15 years, creating what researchers call chronic emergency conditions, affecting entire generations. This matters because it's setting precedents for how conflicts can be conducted through non-kinetic means, potentially influencing other regional disputes worldwide. Newly released photographic collections comparing Hiroshima and Nagasaki from August 1945 to August 2025 reveal remarkable stories of destruction, resilience, and transformation over exactly 80 years. The images show ground zero locations that were complete devastation in 1945, now thriving as modern urban centers with memorials, parks, and thriving communities. Hiroshima's population has grown from 83,000 survivors to over 1.2 million residents today. The most powerful comparison, the atomic bomb dome, deliberately preserved as it stood after the bombing, now surrounded by a peaceful memorial park visited by millions annually. Nagasaki's rebuilt Urakami Cathedral stands near its original destroyed foundation. These images serve as visual testimony to both nuclear weapons' devastating impact and human capacity for rebuilding and reconciliation, particularly relevant as global nuclear tensions increase in 2025. Looking across today's stories, three critical patterns emerge that will shape the coming weeks. First, the escalation spiral. From Israel's Gaza City takeover to expanding U.S. SPAF tariffs to Chinese-Taiwan tensions, multiple conflicts are intensifying simultaneously. When major powers choose confrontation over diplomacy, smaller nations get trapped in impossible positions, like Singapore facing pressure over Taiwan support. Second, the humanitarian crisis cascade. Whether it's Gaza's starving children, Haiti's collapsing government, or France's unprecedented wildfires, emergency responses are overwhelming institutional capacity. The secret U.S. brokered meeting with Gaza humanitarian organizations shows even superpowers need creative solutions when traditional approaches fail. Third, the technology revolution in crisis management. French researchers predicting wildfire behavior, military simulations revealing Singapore's critical role, Trump's private diplomatic channels. Technology is changing how we understand, respond to, and potentially prevent crises. The connection between Hiroshima's 80-year transformation and today's escalating conflicts is stark. Those photographs remind us that even total devastation can be overcome, but only when societies choose reconstruction over continued destruction. For our daily lives, these stories signal increased economic uncertainty from trade wars, potential energy and supply disruptions from regional conflicts, and climate-related emergencies requiring new response strategies. Remember today's key detail: from Gaza City to Haiti to Taiwan, traditional approaches are failing. The solutions emerging aren't coming from established institutions, but from creative diplomatic channels, technological innovations, and international cooperation efforts happening behind the scenes. This is Remo with the Daily Signal. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you tomorrow morning with the latest developments on these rapidly evolving stories.
Unfiltered.